Now, I want to welcome all of you and thank you all. I can't wear the mask because what happens is the threads in it enter into my mouth and become my early prasadam, and it doesn't work. So with all due respect to all of you and with all appreciation, if you don't see me wearing the mask now, that's because of that reason. Otherwise, I've looked the same as you after this talk, okay? So I want to thank you all very much for coming this evening and honoring Lord Nrsimha today. And I have a very wonderful story promised for everyone. It's exciting, it's suspenseful, it's uplifting, enlivening, enthusing. So I almost am sure nobody is going to go to sleep in this talk. Some of my other ones maybe, which are high and heavy in philosophy. This is very high and heavy in lots of lots of activity, action, and adventure. So it's all about the conflict between good and evil. I would like to ask if there are any children who are making any noises here, please bring them outside, and when they stop, you can bring them back inside. But it is an interference to those persons who have come to listen to a very fascinating and amazing story. How many of us here know that story of the appearance of Lord Nrsimha? How many of you know? Okay, so you've heard it before, and it's nothing new, so there won't be much suspense. But there's so much to learn from Prahlad Maharaj, so much to learn from Lord Nrsimha. One thing I would like to mention that I have done this, in fact, my service is to create audio books of Srila Prabhupada's books, and I've been doing that for 35 years. And I have done this particular one, and it's in form, it's on my website, and it's also on many other websites, and it's the story of the appearance of Lord Nrsimha. It has music, it has sound effects, and it has many other voice characterizations which absorb the listener into the story more so. It sounds like there are actually many different characters playing these parts, old persons, young persons, females, young ones, but there actually is only one person and you're looking at him right now. I grew up as a single-only child, and I didn't have any brothers and sisters. So I had to figure out some way to amuse myself and keep myself busy and not be lonely. So I found out that I had a talent that I could actually imitate voices very well. So I used to talk to myself in different voices. And that way I could spend a lot of time with myself thinking that I was with many others. Fortunately, I was never locked up and put into an institution. It could have happened. Fortunately, I had a good mother who definitely kept an ear on the door at the same time that she kept an eye on the food that she was cooking. So now here's something. I just mentioned that I have an audio book which is circulating worldwide. Anyone here who would like to get the audio book after this performance can simply come to me. Write your email address, as so many others have done yesterday, right on here, and it takes me only about a few seconds to email the entire audiobook to you in OneDrive, download. So please do come forward. There's no charge for this. It's a service of myself, the narrator, and a service of this wonderful temple who enables these things to take place. So anyone wanting to leave a donation for the temple is welcome to do that. But it is not demanded, it is not pressured. We simply say if you'd like to, if you can, do so. And if you can't, that's perfectly okay. The audiobook is yours, whether you have money or you don't. Okay. So I will begin now with this incredible story. In case you're wondering where the source of this is from, it was from Back to Godhead magazine, and it's a 1976 edition, way back then. And yeah, I found it, and I thought it would be perfect as an audiobook, and did it that way. The music is incredible. The sound effects are amazing. They absorb you into it. You forget where you are, even who you are. So I thank you, and I encourage you all, please do come up at the end and write your email address here. It won't be given out to anyone but myself, or one of my many voices. Okay. So we begin now. The title of the story was Sinister Father, Saintly Son, September 1st, 1976. There's an old expression, like father, like son, the saying goes. So how was it that the most sinister personality ever to darken the universe fathered a great saint? And that's what this story is all about. How did this little boy, whom you will meet, who is only 5 years old, how did he become a saint when his father was a demon? So it shows you the worst can be influenced by the best and vice versa. So here we go. The first few lines talk about a vicious storm raged through the darkness. This storm is presented with all the sound effects that you find in a storm, with the lashing winds and the hissing again and again, and gigantic trees being uprooted, clouds pouring down, torrents of rain. You hear those on this particular, it was a tape, now it's a CD. Excuse me for time out on my neck. We begin at this point. A vicious storm raged through the darkness. Fierce winds hissed again and again and uprooted gigantic trees. Thick clouds covered the sky, and lightning flashed as though laughing. The ocean with its high waves wailed as if stricken with sorrow. Jackals and dogs howled ominously, and birds flew shrieking from their nests. The twin demons, Hiranyakashipu and Hiranyaksha, were being born. They are the sons of a demigoddess, or demi-demoness, if you want to call her, Diti. And she gave birth to these two particular demons, as you will see why they are called demons. They're called demons because they don't like to follow the rule or the law or the order of God. They like to do what they want to do, what they like to do, what they think is best, as opposed to what God thinks is best, sets down an order and says, please follow this and you'll be happy. So sometimes persons don't want to be dictated to. They don't want to be ordered. They don't want to be told. So that's why they're called demons. And those who follow what the Lord orders are called demigods. Day by day, year after year, they grew more powerful, more evil, and more dominant over all the other demons who made alliances with them. Then, under the direction of Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu, the demons set out to conquer the demigods. Now, the demigods are the persons who are administrators of this universe. They create rain, they create air, they create water, they create sand, they create earth. They do all the things that are necessary for the propagation of the earth to move on as it is supposed to. So they're called demigods because they are told how to run the world, how to administer it. And who tells them it? The Supreme Lord Krishna. Again, day by day, year after year, they grew more powerful, more evil, and more dominant over all other demons who made alliances with them. Then, under the direction of Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu, the demons set out to conquer the demigods, their arch enemies, and the administrators of the universe. In their war for universal power, that was what the war is about. Who's going to lead? Who's going to reign? Who's going to be top dog? Who's going to control people? And that's what that's why they fought. In their war for universal power, the demons enjoyed many victories, but at last, Lord Vishnu, who is also known as Krishna. Krishna has many names. One of them, as we know, is Krishna, another is Vishnu, and another one is what this whole story is about, Nrsimha Dev. In their war for universal power, the demons enjoyed many victories, but at last Lord Vishnu, Krishna himself, killed Hiranyaksha. His brother's death overwhelmed Hiranyakashipu with grief and rage. He bit his lips and gazed upward with eyes whose blazing anger filled the sky with smoke. He took up his trident, glanced around fiercely, bared his terrible teeth, and began to speak to his demon friends. "Oh, my friends," he roared, "Lord Vishnu is supposed to behave equally toward the demigods and the demons, but now he has taken the demigod side and killed my very dear brother Hiranyaksha. For this I shall sever his head from his body, and with his profuse blood I shall please my dead brother Hiranyaksha, who is so fond of sucking blood. Only then shall I be pacified." First, Hiranyakashipu sent his demoniac friends throughout the world to wreak havoc on the innocent and the pious, and then he set out to fulfill his own evil plans. Hiranyakashipu not only wanted to rule the universe and possess all mystic perfections, that means like mystic powers, to be able to fly in the sky, to be able to read people's minds, to be able to do the unimaginable, the miraculous, the impossible, those things. And most important, he wanted to become immortal. In other words, that no one should be able to kill him. To achieve these seemingly impossible ends, he went to the valley of the Mandara hill and began performing severe what? Yes, exactly, severe austerities. He stood on his tiptoes and kept his arms held upward and his eyes fixed on the sky. By the intensity of Hiranyakashipu's exertion, the hair on his head began shedding a light as brilliant as a supernova. All the rivers and oceans seethed, and all the mountains and islands on the surface of the globe began trembling. Stars and planets fell from the heavens, and fires blazed in all directions. So long did Hiranyakashipu remain in his painful position that grass, bamboo sticks, and finally a huge anthill covered his body. The ants devoured his skin, fat, flesh, and blood until only his skeleton remained. Seeing his ghastly condition, the demigod said, "The malicious Hiranyakashipu has been devoured by his own sins, just as a serpent is eaten by small ants." Sorry. Thus encouraged, the demigods, headed by Indra, launched a fierce attack upon the demons. Showing unprecedented strength, the demigods massacred the demons, and to save their own lives, the demon generals scattered in all directions. So the demons, without Hiranyakashipu, were quite feeble. With him, they could defeat just about anyone. So, therefore, these demons, they scattered in all directions. They fled from their homes in great haste, forgetting their wives, animals, and household belongings. Finally, the victorious demigods plundered the palace of Hiranyakashipu and arrested the pregnant queen Kayadu, one of Hiranyakashipu's wives. As King Indra, the leader of the demigods, led Kayadu away, the great sage Narada appeared on the scene, considered one of the greatest of sages in Vedic literature. He's considered an incarnation of devotional love. O king of the demigods, Narada said, you should not so mercilessly drag away this chaste wife of another man. Release her immediately. But King Indra said, within this woman's womb is the seed of the great demon Hiranyakashipu. Therefore, let her remain in our custody until she gives birth to the child. Then we shall release her. The plan was to kill the child because he was the child of a demon. And the understanding was that if a child is born of a demon, it's very possible that he too will follow in the footsteps or his demoniac steps of his father. Therefore, let her remain in our custody until she gives birth to the child. Then we shall release her. Narada replied, the child within her womb, who will be known as Prahlad, is completely sinless. Previous lifetime. No sins. Just followed the laws and the rules and the order of God. So the child within her womb, who will be known as Prahlad, is completely sinless. In fact, he is a great devotee, a powerful servant of Lord Vishnu, the personality of Godhead. You will not be able to kill him. Why? Because he's protected by the Supreme Lord. Upon hearing this, King Indra, by the way, is this echoing too much? Can you hear everything clearly? Thank you. Upon hearing this, King Indra honored the words of the exalted Saint Narad and released Queen Kayadu. Then, having defeated the demons' armies, the demigods returned to their celestial kingdom. Narad brought the queen to his hermitage and, assuring her all protection, he requested, my dear child, please remain here until your husband returns. Kayadu desired the safety of her unborn child. So she stayed in the care of Narad, serving the sage with great devotion. Because Narad is naturally very kind to all fallen souls, he instructed her on religion and transcendental knowledge, and his words were free of any material contamination. While the queen heard the teachings, the child within her womb also listened attentively to Narada's spiritual message. By the way, this has been tested, what I just read, even today by psychologists. And yes, the child can hear from within inside the womb. Thus, even before his birth, Prahlad received his spiritual education. Meanwhile, other residents of heaven approached Brahma. Brahma is the first demigod, chief demigod, the demigod who is responsible for creating this world. And he learned how to do this, of course, from Lord Krishna. So, in other words, he's an assistant or he's an administrator. The Lord has many, many servants or assistants. Meanwhile, other residents of heaven approached Brahma, the foremost demigod, to complain to him that the scorching light still emanating from Hiranyakashipu's head had made their planets uninhabitable, smoky. Thus informed, Brahma and the other demigods went to see Hiranyakashipu to pacify him and end his severe austerities. These austerities were conducted for 100 years in the time of the demigods, which is much longer than our time schedule. Thus informed, Brahma and the other demigods went to see Hiranyakashipu. I am astonished to see your endurance, Brahma exclaimed upon seeing Hiranyakashipu. Despite being bitten and eaten by worms and ants, you are still keeping your life air circulating within your bones. This is certainly wonderful. By your severe austerities, you have won my favor, and I am prepared to give you whatever benedictions you desire. After speaking these words, Brahma sprinkled some spiritual water on the skeleton of Hiranyakashipu. The demon now blossomed forth in a youthful body whose lustrous golden limbs could withstand the striking of thunderbolts. At once, Hiranyakashipu addressed Brahma. Please. Now, he didn't do this just to see how great he was. He wanted some blessings. He wanted boons. He wanted to be able to do things that other people, especially he thought, Vishnu, could not do. At once Hiranyakashipu addressed Brahma, please grant that I not be killed by any created living being, that I not die inside or outside any residence during daytime or night. These are conditions, by the way. During daytime or night, nor on the ground or in the sky, that I not be killed by any being created by you, nor by any weapon, nor by any human being or animal. Indeed, that I not meet death from any entity, either living or non-living, that I have no competitor, that I have sole lordship over all living beings and presiding deities, and that I acquire all mystic powers. After Brahma had granted him all these requests, Hiranyakashipu exclaimed, at last, now I am immortal and invincible. Now I shall challenge Vishnu and avenge the death of my brother. Very swiftly, Hiranyakashipu conquered all the planets in the universe, took up residence in the lavish palace of King Indra, and forced the demigods to bow down at his feet. He even stole the sacrificial oblations meant for the demigods. Hiranyakashipu ruled severely, and he was always drunk on strong-smelling wines and liquors. During this time, Queen Kayadu returned to the palace of her husband and bore him a son named Prahlad. He was a reservoir of all transcendental qualities because he was an unalloyed devotee of the Lord. He was pure, he was peaceful, he was loving, he was kind, he was sweet. He had all good qualities, all virtues. And so, therefore, he was an admirable individual. Determined to understand the absolute truth, he had full control over his senses and mind. He was kind to all living creatures and the best friend of everyone. Toward respectable persons, he behaved just like a menial servant. To the poor, he was like a father. To his equals, he was like a sympathetic brother. Always very humble, he considered his teachers, spiritual masters, and older godbrothers to be as good as the Lord himself. Indeed, he was completely free of any pride. He didn't think, well, I have all these acquirements, all these accomplishments, all these virtues. He never thought, I'm so superior to others. Rather, he thought himself humble. He thought himself the servant of everyone. And consequently, he was very much loved because of this servant mentality. Indeed, he was completely free of any pride that might have arisen from his good education, riches, beauty, and aristocratic birth. Let's see if we can accomplish this. Hiranyakashipu did not know that Prahlad had already learned devotional service while in the womb of his mother. So when Prahlad turned 5 years old, Hiranyakashipu sent him to school to acquire a materialistic education, which is generally about eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. But Prahlad knew much, much more than that. Prahlad studied along with the sons of other demons. At school, he heard and recited lessons on politics and economics, but he did not like them because they required that he consider one person a friend and another person an enemy. He didn't want enemies. Why? He knew he was the soul. And knowing he's a soul, he knew everyone else was a soul. Knowing everyone else is a soul, he understood that if I'm a soul and you're a soul, we're related as co-souls. And therefore, as a relationship, we're all brothers and sisters. So why fight with each other when we all are one and a part of one another? And therefore, we could all love each other instead of hating each other. That was what he wanted to do, but that's not what his teachers wanted him to do. After taking Prahlad back to school, Prahlad replied, "O king of the demons," he's talking to his father now. After Prahlad had attended school for some time, Hiranyakashipu took him on his lap and affectionately inquired, "My dear son, please tell me about your favorite subject in school." Prahlad replied, "O king of the demons." He didn't say father, he just said king of the demons, because that's how he saw him. He didn't feel that he was like a father, because a father is loving and kind and sweet. Whereas this father was very cruel and very hostile and very antagonistic, as we shall see as we move along. "O king of the demons, as far as I have learned from my spiritual master, any person who accepts his temporary body and temporary household life as real meaning it's going to go on forever, as real is certainly embarrassed by anxiety, having fallen into a dark, dry well filled only with suffering." Who doesn't suffer? Who isn't suffering today? We have this coronavirus. We have so many other disorders and diseases and accidents and things that happen to us. So Prahlad Maharaj, he saw the reality. He saw that this is a world of many difficulties, trials, tribulations, problems, and the like. And he knew that there was a higher world, a better world, a perfect world, which is called the spiritual world. And one can enter that world when one becomes totally and truly, completely spiritual in all qualities and all one's virtues and all one's understandings. Startled, Hiranyakashipu laughed sardonically and said, "Ha ha, thus the intelligence of children spoiled by the words of the enemy." He thought that perhaps Lord Vishnu's assistance and somehow got to his son, and getting to his son, they taught him about more and more about Lord Vishnu, and taught him about the philosophy of Lord Vishnu. Startled, Hiranyakashipu laughed sardonically and said, "Thus is the intelligence of children spoiled by the words of the enemy." He told his assistants, "Give this boy complete protection at school. Devotees of the Lord may go there in disguise, so take care that his intelligence is not further influenced by them." In other words, he's saying, don't let him be influenced by divine thoughts, divine ideas, divine feelings. Let him be influenced by my demoniac feelings, demoniac thoughts, demoniac ideas. Hate this one, hate that one, control this one, be better than this one. This is demoniac. That's what he wanted his son to learn, so that he would be, as he is, the greatest, and he wanted his son to follow in the same footsteps. Sorry. After taking Prahlad back to school, Prahlad's teachers, and their names were Sanda and Amarka, said to him, "Dear son Prahlad, all peace and good fortune unto you. Now we are going to ask you a few questions, so please do not speak lies. Just reply with the truth. The other boys here are not like you. They do not speak in a deviant way about God. How have you learned these instructions? How has your intelligence been spoiled? Have our enemies polluted you?" Prahlad answered, "Let me offer my respectful obeisances unto the personality of Godhead, who deludes those in the material world, and thus creates in their minds distinctions such as friend and enemy, Now I am actually seeing this delusion which I previously heard about from learned authorities. Since every one of us is an eternal servant of God, we are not different from one another, but persons who are unable to ascertain the existence of the Lord within themselves, in the heart, where he dwells, where he exists, always think in terms of friend and enemy. Why? Because they think they are the physical body. And if I think I'm the physical body and I'm here to somehow to be someone important, valuable, big, great, wealthy, or like that, and somehow I don't hit the mark, then what happens is that I do not see the person who is trying to threaten me or become better than me or greater or higher than me. I don't see him as my friend. Because generally speaking, people like to be important. They like to be valuable. They like to be great. So therefore, the principle of friend and enemy comes into being. If I want something and you get it before me, and I can't get it from you, then I'm envious of you. And maybe I'll try to obtain it from you, either by some offer I may make. And if the offer is not good enough, and you or whoever it is keeps or holds on to what he has that I want, there can be conflict, there can be friction, there can be fighting, and there can be killing. So that's what Prahlad is very much against. He doesn't want to be a killer. He wants to be a friend to all. And the way to do that, of course, is to not be so attached to material objects to such an extent that if you lose it, you sorrow, or if you gain more of it, you become exalted. The whole point is to keep an even, peaceful, tranquil mind. The only way we can do that is to understand that all these items are given by the Supreme Lord, and sometimes he will take them away. But whatever he does, give them to you, take them away, it doesn't really matter. Use them, at least what we try to do is use them in the service or the loving service of God, so that the Lord will be pleased, we will be pleased, and as a result of the pleasure that comes to us, we will want to serve more and more, because God has been pleased by our service. So, since every one of us is an eternal servant of God, we are not different from one another, but persons who are unable to ascertain the existence of the Lord within themselves always think in terms of friend and enemy. The same personality of Godhead who has created this situation has given me the intelligence to take the side of your so-called enemy. He calls him a so-called because there's really no real enemy. Enemy is simply a construction of our mind, because I feel that he wants something I have, or he wants to take something I have, or he wants to harm me because I have it and take it away from me. Therefore, we have friend and we have enemy. But for one who is not attached to anything that he has, but simply uses it in the loving service of God, that person is peaceful, he's calm, he's controlled, serene. Nothing bothers him, because he doesn't feel that he's got to be better, higher, bigger, greater, grander. He simply feels that whatever he has, he will or she will use it in the loving service of God. And since the loving service is being offered to the Supreme Lord, the result will be that the Lord will favor him with his blessings of peace and love and joy and ecstasy and so many other wonderful things. Because when you please God, he wants to reciprocate that pleasure. And when he reciprocates, that comes in the heart area here. It also comes sometimes externally. You want something, and he arranges that you get it. Or, if you don't please him, he may arrange that you don't get it. In other words, if you deliberately don't pay attention to what he's requesting of you. So the Lord is very, very much reciprocative. He likes to give back. And that's why we like to, because we're all part and parcel of the Supreme Lord. And when someone gives us something, we have a natural tendency to want to give something in return. Continuing. Since every one of us is an eternal servant of God, we are not different from one another. I mentioned that earlier. But persons who are unable to ascertain the existence of the Lord within themselves. By the way, the Lord does make himself known. He makes himself known through the peace that we have, the joy that we have, the understandings that we have, the consciousness that we have, which can be up and which could be down. He can also speak to us in English, in Spanish, in French. There is nothing he cannot do. And that's because he is God. God means omnipotent, omnipresent. Omnipotent means he knows he's all-powerful. Omnipresent means he's everywhere present. In every atom of creation, the Supreme Lord dwells. And he is there to give us help at any given time. And the more we talk to the Lord, the more we pray to the Lord, the more we look up to the Lord, the more we try to please the Lord, the more we make contact with the Lord, and that contact is the means by which our contact grows greater and greater, our relationship with God grows greater and greater, and as a result of that relationship, we're able to tune into, understand, and know things that we otherwise would not know, and which only God does know. So, coming back, since every one of us is an eternal servant of God, we are not different from one another, but persons who are unable to ascertain the existence of the Lord within themselves always think in terms of friend and enemy. The same personality of Godhead who has created this situation has given me the intelligence to take the side of your so-called enemy, not real enemy. That's in your imagination. As iron is attracted by a magnet, I am attracted by the Lord. Sorry. Prahlad's teachers were furious. Bring me a stick. This Prahlad is damaging our good name. Because he's talking the philosophy which is opposed to his father's. They're afraid of losing their jobs, go on unemployment. This Prahlad is damaging our good name. He must be punished. Continuously threatening him, Sunda and Amarka started to teach Prahlad about worldly pseudo-religion, money-making, and sense pleasure. By the way, this organization has nothing against making money. I want nobody has to feel ashamed of that. We are opposed to making money simply for the sake of your own self-aggrandizement. Just to be big, to be grand, to be wonderful, to be admired, to be looked up to be applauded. That's worthless. It's useless. But if we use them in the loving service of God, that's a good thing because God is pleased. And when God is pleased, he's pleased with you. And if he's pleased with you, he will heap upon you his blessings, which will go very, very far in your life. Without those blessings, sometimes what happens, we find ourselves lacking so many things that we would like to have, that we may feel we need to have, but we're not getting. So to get the blessings of God, we should try our best to use whatever he's given us: food, clothing, shelter, health, strength, guidance, protection, rest, inspiration, any one of these things to assist him in the mission of spreading God consciousness and peacefulness throughout the world. Continuously threatening him, Sunda and Amarka started to teach Prahlad about worldly pseudo-religion, money-making, and sense pleasure. After some time, they again presented him to his father. When Hiranyakasipu saw Prahlad bowing down before him, he affectionately showered the child with his blessings and jubilantly embraced him with both his arms. He sat Prahlad on his lap and tears gliding down from his eyes onto the child's smiling face, he spoke to his sons. My dear Prahlad, he began, my dear son, for a long time you have heard so many things from your teachers. Now, please repeat to me whatever you think is the best of that knowledge. Is there some talking going on? If there is, I would appreciate if it be stopped because it's interfering with my concentration. Thank you very much. Okay. Fearlessly, Prahlad said, here's what's best. Hearing and chanting about the holy name, form, qualities, paraphernalia, and pastimes of the Supreme Lord. Remembering them. Now, this class will not go on if this talking continues. You understand? We have rules and regulations, and that's one of them. Thank you very much. Remembering them, serving the lotus feet of the Lord, offering the Lord respectful worship with 16 types of paraphernalia, offering prayers to the Lord, becoming his servant, considering the Lord's one's best friend, and surrendering to him, in other words, serving him with body, mind, and words. These 9 processes are known as pure devotional service. Again, I'll repeat some of them. Hearing about God, chanting about God, serving the Lord, worshiping the Lord, offering prayers to the Lord, and the like, having friendship with the Lord. So all of these represent devotional service. When I speak of devotional service, these 9 which I just stated are those which are devotional service. Srila Prabhupada uses those terms over and over again. Sometimes people wonder, what does he mean? I'm going to repeat those so that everyone will be able to remember them. And those of you who get the audio book from me by just giving me your email address, you'll hear them then. But I want to repeat for those who don't get it. So, fearlessly, Prahlad said, hearing and chanting about the holy name. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Come on, here, let's say it. A little louder, I want to hear some oomph in it. Hare Krishna. Krishna, Krishna, Krishna. Beautiful. The Lord is definitely going to reciprocate that, no question about it. So, continuing, fearlessly, Prahlad said, hearing and chanting about the holy name, form, qualities, paraphernalia, and pastimes of the Supreme Lord, remembering them, serving the lotus feet of the Lord, offering the Lord respectful worship with 16 types of paraphernalia, offering prayers to the Lord, becoming his servant, considering the Lord one's best friend, and surrendering to him, in other words, serving him with body, mind, and words. These 9 processes are known as pure devotional service. And I consider anyone who has dedicated his life to the service of Lord Vishnu through these 9 methods to be the most learned person, for he has acquired complete knowledge. Why? One who does that, the ultimate result is that one becomes purer and purer and purer in the heart. One feels bliss, feels ecstasy, feels peace, he feels love of God, and ultimately when he finally leaves this world, where does he go? He doesn't come back to this world. He goes to the spiritual world. The spiritual world is high, high, far, far above, where the Lord dwells with all of his devotees, and one stays there with the Lord and his great devotees and feels the joy, the pleasure, the happiness of associating with persons who do not have evil qualities. They have only good qualities because they have earned the position to get there. It's not that the Lord simply arbitrarily grabbed a hold of them and said, okay, you go to the spiritual world. That's not it. They had to work for it. They had to earn it. They had to do something. And in so doing, they pleased the Lord. And pleasing God, he awarded them this wonderful position. In the Bhagavad Gita, it is said, as they surrender unto me, I reward them accordingly. Everyone follows my path. So that is the reward. The reward is peace, inner peace, bliss, strength, joy, happiness, complete. Continuing. His lips now he was just talking to his father. And he said to his father, I consider anyone who has dedicated his life to the service of Lord Vishnu through these 9 methods to be the most learned person, for he has acquired complete knowledge. His lips trembling in rage, Hiranyakashipu turned to Sanda. What is this nonsense? Some Brahmin you are. You have disobeyed my order. You have taken shelter of my enemies. You have taught this poor boy about devotional service. Sanda quickly replied, O king, O enemy of Indra, whatever your son has said was not taught to him by me or by anyone else. His devotional service has developed spontaneously. Please give up your anger. Do not unnecessarily accuse us. Hiranyakashipu turned to his son and said, You rascal, most fallen member of our family, if your teachers did not teach you this, then who did? Prahlad answered, persons who have accepted as their leader a blind man, he's talking about his father now, by the way, a blind man attached to external sense objects cannot understand that the goal of life is to return home, back to Godhead, to engage in devotional service of Lord Vishnu. Only if such persons take shelter of the lotus feet of the devotee of Lord Vishnu can they be freed from material contamination. And what does material contamination do to us? It keeps us right here, or goes even to a lower planet, which we often may refer to as hellish planets or lower planets. And that does not allow us to experience ever the joy, the peace, the uplift, the spiritual excitement that is available to every one of us if we choose to serve the Supreme Lord and practice these 9 forms of devotional service. Blinded by anger, Hiranyakashipu threw Prahlad from his lap onto the ground. Servants, take him away, kill him at once. This is a man talking about his 5-year-old child. This is the original child abuser. It all started here. Seriously. So, servants, take him away and kill him at once, he screamed. By becoming a devotee of Vishnu, Prahlad has become my brother's murderer. He is a traitor, a poisoned limb of the family, and he must be amputated immediately. Kill him without delay. The demoniac servants of Hiranyakashipu, who had fearful faces, sharp teeth, and reddish beards, then started to strike Prahlad's tender body with their tridents. They shouted, chop him up, pierce him, chop him up. However, Prahlad, and this is the most interesting aspect of this whole story, however, Prahlad, he didn't start crying, he didn't start begging the Lord to save him. He didn't do any of those things. Prahlad just sat silently and meditated on God, the personality of Godhead, and the demon's weapons had no effect on him. Seeing this, his father Hiranyakashipu became fearful and contrived various ways to kill his son. He threw him beneath elephants' feet. He cast him into the midst of huge, fearful snakes. He cursed him with destructive spells. He hurled him from a hilltop. He conjured up frightening apparitions. He gave him poison. He starved him. He exposed him to severe cold, winds, fire, and water. He even threw heavy stones to crush him. But throughout these trials, Prahlad simply meditated on Lord Vishnu, and thus he remained unharmed. Why? Because Vishnu, who, as I said, is present everywhere, gave him protection. And if any one of us have problems or difficulties, trials, tribulations, and we simply meditate upon the Supreme Lord, he knows we need the protection, and he will be only too glad to give us that protection, and in so doing, we will not be harmed. We will not be we will not be harmed or disturbed or upset. But Sunda and Amarka was still very hopeful, and they could change the boy by the force of their teaching. They were hopeful that they could do that. So once again, Hiranyakashipu put Prahlad under their care, and once again they systematically, unceasingly taught Prahlad about worldly pseudo-religion, business, and sensual satisfaction. But whenever the teachers left the classroom to attend to household affairs, Prahlad would speak to his classmates about the uselessness of materialism. His friends loved and respected him, and because of their tender age, they had not yet been polluted by their teachers' instructions. The children have to go outside. I can't continue unless they do. We don't compete. I'm sorry. Now they have to take them out. I'm sorry. These other people, there are 50 people here want to hear this, and the child is preventing that. Thank you very much. Continuing. His friends loved and respected him, and because of their tender age, they had not yet been polluted by their teachers' instructions. Thus they listened attentively to Prahlad's words. A person who, and this is Prahlad, a person who is sufficiently intelligent, he told them, should practice devotional service from the very beginning of life, giving up all other engagements. This human body is rarely achieved. Yeah, your next body can be an animal body. It can be. You can be a dog. You can be a cat. You can be a worm. You could be a bedbug. Yeah, it can happen. Nobody should be so egocentric as to think that these things cannot happen. If we act in ways which are opposed to God's ways, these tragedies do happen. This human body is rarely achieved, although it is temporary like other bodies. In this human body, we can perform devotional service to God, and even a slight amount of sincere devotional service can give us complete perfection. The human form of life affords us a chance to return home, where we originally came from, back home, back to Godhead. Therefore, all living beings, especially human beings, must serve the lotus feet of Lord Vishnu. This devotional service is natural because Lord Vishnu, the personality of Godhead, is the most beloved friend, master, and well-wisher of everyone. Did everybody eat today? Huh? I want to hear you. Well, that's good because you had to fast today, but you will, you will eat in a very short amount of time. And the reason we eat is that the Lord makes sure that the rain comes down onto the ground. He makes sure that the seeds are there. He makes sure that the seeds grow. And eventually what happens is that we have what we need, what we call wherewithal, in order to continue living our lives. So this is God's grace. Even if we've done some wrongs, we've done some bad things, we've done some evil things, he says, they're still my children. Just as some of us have had children. Sometimes they do something bad, but you don't tell them, I'm not going to feed you tonight. Why not? Because the kid will go to the police and have you arrested. That's why. They're very smart these days. So, the human form of life affords us a chance to return home back to Godhead. Therefore, all living beings, especially human beings, must serve the lotus feet of Lord Vishnu. This devotional service is natural because Lord Vishnu, the personality of Godhead, is the most beloved friend, master, and well-wisher of everyone. We should not try merely for sensual pleasure, which is... We just have a few pages more. No, I have to continue this. We just have a few pages more, and I will then end. But I want to finish this story. You all sat here very patiently and very dutifully, and you all have a right, and you all should have the blessings of how this story ends. We should not try merely for sensual pleasure, for that results only in a loss of time and energy, but no actual spiritual profit. But if we try to serve Lord Vishnu, then surely we can attain the spiritual platform of self-realization. All the sons of the demons appreciated the transcendental instructions of Prahlad, and they took them very seriously. But Sanda and Amarka became afraid. They saw that by associating with Prahlad, their students were becoming devotees of Lord Vishnu. When the teachers approached Hiranyakashipu and described the situation, he went into a great rage, trembling in fury and hissing like a snake. Trampled underfoot, Hiranyakashipu called for his son. When Prahlad came before his father, his hands were folded, like this. His hands were folded. When Prahlad came before his father, his hands were folded, and he looked peaceful, mild, and gentle. Hiranyakashipu stared at him with crooked eyes and rebuked him harshly. "O most impudent, stupid troublemaker, O scum of the earth, you have violated my power, and therefore you are an obstinate fool. Today I shall send you to your death. Prahlad, you rascal, you know that when I am angry, all the planets in the universe tremble. Tell me, by whose power have you become so impudent and fearless?" Calmly, Prahlad replied, "My dear king, the source of my strength is the source of yours also, and the source of everyone's. Whether moving or stationary, superior or interior, every living being is under the control of the all-powerful personality of Godhead." "You say there is a being superior to me," said Hiranyakashipu. "But where is he? If he is everywhere, then why is he not present in this pillar you see before you?" You see that pillar there? He's talking about a pillar like that, but much larger. "But where is he? If he is everywhere, then why is he not present in this pillar you see before you? Do you think he is in this pillar?" "Yes," Prahlad answered. "He is there." Hiranyakashipu's rage flared more and more. "Because you are speaking such nonsense," he said, "I shall now sever your head from your body. Now let me see your most worshipable God come to protect you." Then exactly at that moment, out of the very pillar that Hiranyakashipu had singled out, a wonderful and terrifying form appeared, a form never before seen, half man and half lion, with angry eyes like molten gold, a shining mane that expanded the dimensions of his fearful face, and razor-sharp tongue that moved about like a dueling sword. The Supreme Personality of Godhead had incarnated in his wrathful form of the Nrsimha ki! Lord Nrsimha ki! Louder! Lord Nrsimha ki! You almost threw me off the podium. Shocked, this is almost the last page. Shocked and bewildered, Hiranyakashipu gazed at the Lord, then picked up his club. Please don't play the drum until I'm finished speaking. Thank you. Nrsimha played with shocked and bewildered, Hiranyakashipu gazed at the Lord, then picked up his club and attacked him boldly. Nrsimha played with him just as an eagle plays with a snake, allowing him time and again to escape the long, threatening nails of his lotus hands. Finally, the Lord grabbed him and placed him on his lap. Then, in the doorway of the assembly hall, he very easily tore the demon Hiranyakashipu to pieces. By his transcendental cleverness, Lord Nrsimha was able to kill Hiranyakashipu without contradicting any of Brahma's benedictions. You remember the benedictions that he asked that he could not be killed under certain circumstances. By his transcendental cleverness, Lord Nrsimha Dev was able to kill Hiranyakasipu without contradicting any of Brahma's benedictions. The execution took place neither inside nor outside, but in the doorway, neither on land nor in the sky, but on the Lord's lap, neither during the day nor during the night, but at twilight, neither by man, beast, or demigod, nor by any created being, but by the personality of Godhead, and not by any weapon, but by the Lord's own lotus hands. The demigod showered Lord Nrsimha Dev with flowers and then offered him respectful prayers, glorifying him and thanking him for saving the universe from the oppressive reign of Hiranyakasipu. Prahlad also offered the Lord very beautiful prayers, asking him only for the strength to serve him and to love him. When Nrsimha Dev encouraged Prahlad to request some favor, the boy simply asked the Lord to save all people, including his demoniac father. In other words, father deserved to go to hell, but because he was soft-hearted, Prahlad, he was loving, he was sympathetic, he was understanding, he asked the Lord to save all people, including his demoniac father, from repeated birth and death. In other words, he would not be born again and again and suffer the tyrannies of worldly life, of this world. Thanks to the devotional training he received from the pure devotee Narada, Prahlad made his life successful. He remembered the Lord always and pleased him with his loving service. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. It's a pleasure sharing this. Those of you who want to get the audio book of it, please come up and you can just put your email address on this card and I'll send it to you either today or tomorrow. There's no charge for this and there's a lot of inspiration.